All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Cody Giblett, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So, the title of today's webinar is How to Protect Your Business and Inventions Using Trademark, Patents, and Copyright. Today, we're going to learn how you can protect your business using intellectual property rights, practical applications of trademark, patents, and copyright in the business world. And the three presenters that we have today is a commissioner for patents at the the United States Patent and Trademarks Office, Commissioner Vaishali Udupa. And then we also have the Commissioner of Trademarks at the U.S. States Patent Office and Trade Office, Commissioner David Gooder. And then joining them will be Brian Freed. He's an inventor, coach, author, radio and TV host, and the founder of National Inventor Club. You should, if you follow the SCORE webinars, you've probably seen him on a webinar before, and we're happy to have him back, and we're happy to have both commissioners here as well. But before we bring them on to begin the presentation, I'd like to first show you how to navigate this platform. So first things first, let me go ahead and bring the slide up. If you look at the slide I brought up, it should reflect roughly what you see here. I think we updated a few graphics, but on the left, you should see a toolbar. That toolbar is going to have all of the items that I'm going to be talking about in this introduction. And if you click on an icon, it'll bring up a component on and off screen. These components you're able to resize and adjust to make your viewing experience customizable and maybe help fit the video and presentation slides, make it better fit your computer. So first things first, this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending a link to the recording and the slide deck to all attendees in a post-event email. You can also download the slides by going to the resource tab below. And then we'll also be doing a live Q&A after the presentation has ended. And if you have any questions, you can submit them using the Q&A tab. If you're wanting to see more information about the presenters, you can find the presenter tab below the presentation window. If you're having audio issues, please make sure that the volume slider inside the video window is unmuted. And if that doesn't fix the issue, then please contact us at webinars@score.org or in the Q&A tab, and I'll try to get to that issue as soon as possible. And then we also have closed captioning below if you'd like to follow along with the live transcript. And so with that, I'd like to bring on our presenters to begin the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Let's just wait for Commissioner David Gooder. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, Cody and SCORE, for having us. Just want to give a quick intro here. And in our audience today are inventors, startups, entrepreneurs, whatever we want to call ourselves. We're all on our journey. And somewhere along the way, we should be thinking about, if we haven't already, about protecting that big idea, your invention, your business, your methods, your names, your slogans, your graphics. When I first started, I wish I had these resources. This type of information, really, to be able to help us to make better decisions. That's what it's all about. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself. I'm an inventor. I have 15 issued patents. I have well over 50 trademarks. I've licensed products, so I receive royalties from them. I manufacture products locally and overseas, and I've been doing the same thing as an inventor coach for over 18 years now. I founded the National Inventor Club, and you see some of those logos there on the page. One that I'm really most proud of, my latest invention, I guess you could call it, is the Inventor Smart Community, which is a platform. It's a social media platform for inventors, and there's resources and a lot of networking that's going on there. As far as me as an inventor, I have a couple inventions that I just wanted to show you real quick, just simple stuff. So when during COVID, I was treasuring my paper towels, and as soon as you were trying to get paper towels, there wasn't too many out there. So I was really keeping an eye on them. And I noticed that on the bottom, well, let me flip it over. usually when your hands are wet or dirty, you put it on top of the paper towel roll to pull the sheet off. And it kind of looked like this. It got really dirty. It was wet, dried up. So I came up with this product called the paper towel topper. And now you put the paper towel topper into any top of the paper towel roll. So when your hands are wet or dirty, you pull it off and it stays clean and dry. So that's my paper towel topper. I also have a collapsible egg tray called Extra Space. So it only keeps the amount of, it only keeps the space that you need for the amount of eggs that you have left. I've had some other fun products like snack containers that I've had Elmo, Cookie Monster, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on. I've also had a set of tongs that when you pull up, where you usually lock it, you put tabs. I put tabs inside, so it's small, medium, and large opening. Just fun stuff. And I've had a chance to be involved with a lot of inventors over the years and help them to commercialize their invention. So it's been fun. During my journey, I've authored 3 books. My latest one is called How to Make Money with Your Invention Idea. And I host a TV show called Got Invention Show, where I get to showcase inventors and their levels of success along the way on their journey of their invention. So I'm very excited to be here today. SCORE asked me to put together this format and really to be able to share this wealth of information covering patents and trademarks and copyrights. And who better to get this information from? They asked and I got it. We have the commissioner for patents. We have Vaishali Udupa, and we have the commissioner for trademarks, David Gooder. So we get to hear from the highest authorities at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office on these topics. So let's start off with having Vaishali. She'll start off with giving us some information on patents. Vaishali, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Brian, for having me and Dave speak today. And we're very excited because at the USPTO, we really want to make sure that people know about the great work we do here at the USPTO. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a little bit of information on the patent side, and then Dave is going to talk about the trademark side. But from my perspective, I really want to try to help demystify the patent process. So let's go. I'm going to navigate to the next slide. So just to give an outline and an overview of what I plan to do, give a little history about intellectual property and what is intellectual property. What is the role of the USPTO and why does inventions matter? And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit more on going into deeper, take a deeper dive into what is a patent, what are the different types of patents, who can be an inventor. And then we're going to go even further and talk about the anatomy of a patent so you get a little bit more comfortable about when you see one, what does it look like? What do you need? And then how is the journey to get the application? And then most importantly, what are the resources that are available to all of you that are joining us today? The USPTO wants to make this process really applicant friendly. So we have a lot of great assistance and resources and, go through that. So first, just to provide a little bit of historical background, let's just even start. What is intellectual property, right? It's intangible assets that basically, when you're thinking about inventions and creations and literary works and code and images and things like that. These are all intangible concepts. They're not like real property that you can touch, but that's what intellectual property is. And it goes, intellectual property is deeply rooted in our nation's history. And it comes, you look even in our Constitution, and you will see that our Constitution talks about intellectual property. So Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, that Congress shall have power to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for a limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. So our Constitution itself talks about intellectual property, but there's different types of intellectual property. And I'm going to just briefly go over that. So one is, patents. And so, as Brian said, I am the commissioner for patents. And so this is sort of my main area. And patents relate to how an invention works, functions, or is made. It also relates to ornamental design. And we also have newly invented plant strains. So to give you some examples, I mean, when you're thinking about right now, electronic vehicles or solar panels or, your smartphones, there's tons of patents that are on those. And pharmaceutical companies with their new drugs, there's patents related to that. So there's so much, invention all around us. Then moving on to another type, it's trademark. And this is Dave Gooder's area. And this sort of identifies the origins and goods of services. You think of when you go into the mall and all the different brands that you see out there. So these are all protected by trademarks. But I'm not going to go too deep into that because, Dave has a lot to say there. Copyrights, those are sort of the creative expressions stored in tangible form. Think about a book that you read, music lyrics, or the actual song itself. Computer code also can fall into copyrights. And finally, trade secrets. Trade secrets is information that is valuable and is kept confidential. We all know about the Coca-Cola, what's the secret formula? Well, actually, we don't know because they've kept it secret, but we know how much effort that Coca-Cola does to keep this actual formula secret. Same with KFC and all the different seasonings that go in there. So, and then it's not just the formulas and how, food, but we're thinking about, your customer lists or other information like that. So moving on, what is the USPTO's role in intellectual property? We are America's innovation agency, and we're committed to fostering innovation and economic growth and creating a reliable, predictable, and high quality IP system. So it's United States Patent and Trademark Office. So if you want to get a patent, you want to get a trademark, this is where you come in the US. And a little bit as to why inventions matter and what does this mean to you? Now, when we talk about patents, it really helps our global economy, national security. We want to promote innovation and we want to help safeguard your inventions. This helps companies grow. It's so beneficial to the community because it makes new products for us to use and services available. And it also provides personal growth, development, and advancement. And I'm going to ask a question to Brian right here. Brian, I mean, you were talking about all the different patents you have. What does it mean to you, like having a patent or all the different patents you have?
I think that it's very important. Look, we're all on here, whether it's a business or an invention, a product, we're coming up with ideas and we want to figure out if it's something that we can call our own, that we can protect, because it actually gives, you have better options when you do. So for example, like you saw, I have some of the products that I've licensed and I earn royalties from them. So what I've done is, let's say I come up with an idea, I end up doing a good patent search with a patentability opinion to make sure that even though I don't see it down the aisles of Walmart or on Amazon, I end up doing a good search to see if it's something that I can call my own. And then I try to get some sort of intellectual property, especially a patent, because let's say now I end up going through and having this shot at getting a patent. Once I do get it issued, or even before, depending on the company, I can go to a company and say, how you doing? My name is Brian Freed. I came up with this product and I think it would align very nicely with your product line. Hopefully you feel the same way. And I'm looking for you to license it, manufacture it, and I earn a royalty from it. So what you're doing really, Vaishali, is you're giving them the rights to have a competitive advantage in the market with your intellectual property. So that's how it's helped me with having patents, because I have options. If I'm going to license it, I'm giving a company a competitive advantage. If I'm going to manufacture it, I'm giving myself a competitive advantage, because if somebody tries to do something similar to mine and it's within the claims or the ornamental design, at least I know I have some protection than not having any at all. And on the same time, I could talk about trademarks later on, how I've commercialized those. But yeah, I think it's really important. If you do have a shot to get a patent, then give it a try.
Completely agree. I think, the value of patents is so important. Prior to coming to the USPTO, I worked at law firms representing different companies, and I worked at actual companies. When we would acquire companies, if they had a strong patent portfolio, you would see the extra zeros that were added to the purchase price. Or when we were in litigation, and I was working on those litigations, and how the value of patents can provide money back to the company if you think someone is infringing your patent. So there is a lot of value here. And it's not just for the person who owns it, but for also the people that use these products. And so what is we talked a little bit about, Brian mentioned this, but what does a patent give? It gives the right to exclude others from making, using, selling, offering for sale, or importing the claimed invention. So you get your patent and you can say, okay, look, I see it out in the market, but if I don't want to, I want to get a license to this. You have that right when you have that valid patent in your hand, that you can say, look, I'm going to prevent you from making it unless you give me some money for it. I'm going to prevent you from selling it unless you give some money. It gives you the right to exclude others. Now, it's a limited term. Now, this is a monopoly, right, that we're creating here in our system. But it doesn't go forever. So generally speaking, and there's different types of patents, and I'll go into that, but a utility patent, which is the most common, the life of a utility patent is from the date of filing 20 years out. And then a design patent, they have different terms, but I'm not going to go into all the different lengths there. The other thing to understand is when you come to the USPTO, what you're getting is a U.S. patent. And so it provides you protection within the United States. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office does not issue worldwide patents. And so there's different types of patents. Now there's a utility patent. That's the most common one that our agency deals with. And it has to do with anything from, we talked about the pharmaceutical drugs. We have, your cell phone, your iPhone, the number of patents that are there. Utility patents also have to deal with the process of manufacturing, the assembly lines that are sometimes used. And even, just the great inventions that Brian had, right? The towel, paper towel top, right? Those are all utility. Then we go into designs, and that has to do more with the way something looks, the ornamental aspects of it. And so there's design patents. So if you look in the slide right here, you see the Statue of Liberty. Statue of Liberty had a design patent on it. A lot of the Star Wars figures have design patents on them. And so another one, toothbrushes, the way that they look, you'll see design patents there. And finally, we also issue plant patents. And these are ones that are not something that you have to create, like with hybrids and things like that. You have to create the plant patent. So when you go to the grocery store and you see these big, juicy, ripe strawberries, very often the creation of those special varieties of strawberries or things like that, or other beautiful flowers that you see, they are created, and you get protection for plant patents there.
There are inventors and people that I speak to that when I say, do you have a patent filed or issued? And they say, yes, I have a provisional. If you can explain what provisional is, that's something that a lot of people might be might get some help with, because it's something that sometimes gets confusing for us.
Sure. So, when you're thinking of your idea, so a provisional patent is sort of the way to, put a stake down and to be able to say, look, I have the start of an idea. I'm trying to get my whole application together. But I know what my idea is. And when you file is also really important, right? Because maybe it's something that there's a lot of people working on this. And so the date you file gives you sort of the rights. First to file is very important. So if you want to sort of start that date and get that special date, you file a provisional patent, but you don't have all your specification together, but you have at least one claim together, you can file that provisional patent, and that gives you a whole year to get your final application together and to get your final application filed with the USPTO. Is there anything?
Yeah, so we come up with an idea. We get it to a point where we feel somewhat comfortable. We want to be able to be the first to file, like you're mentioning. And what that's going to do for us, you're saying, is that's going to give us a right for 1 year to say that we're patent pending. And while that 1 year is waiting, we have a chance to explore the market. It's not going to necessarily be seen by the patent examiners until we file the non-provisional patent application, which is that utility patent. And then they're going to take that original filing date and use that as part of our application.
Yes. And then also the other thing to remember is, even as you're going through and you file your actual application, it's going to take a little bit of time. And throughout that whole process, you can say patent pending, right? And so this is really good for inventors and things like that. And as you're trying to get funding, or you're trying to see the marketability and everything like that. I mean, if you go and you watch Shark Tank, right? Do you have a patent? Do you have a patent pending? I mean, it's an important question that a lot of investors ask. So it is really important to, when you're thinking about how you want to market and sell your product, or you want to get adoption of that, like, this is something that's really important, is to try to get as early a filing date as possible. Oops. Oh, actually, let me go back. Okay. Now, who can be an inventor on a patent? So any person who contributed to the conception of the invention. So who came up with this idea? And sometimes it might be multiple people. Sometimes it might be you. And now we're having a lot of discussions on, what if you had some help with AI? Well, as long as there's a real natural person and most of the work was done by you, that's the inventor. It is not the AI. An AI model or things like that, they cannot be inventors. Now, a little bit more and going into details about the actual process itself. I think it's really, when you see a patent, sometimes you might get a little bit overwhelmed. What is all the stuff that you see on the patent? It might be a little confusing. But generally speaking, it's, telling you the breadth and scope of what was invented. So first thing is the abstract. The abstract is, and you'll see it sort of like on the middle right side. That is just like a summary. It's a nice, sweet summary of your invention. And this is all on the front page. And then you have on the top, the issue date. This is the date that you actually got the patent. But if you look down a little bit on the left side, you have the filing date. Remember, we talked, filing date is really important. So what is the date this person filed the patent? So if someone says, well, I invented it first, well, and you also have this filing date, really gives you a lot about when you filed. The first to file is usually a very important thing, but then that serves as one date. And then you have your other information that you might have in your files and other things of when you came up with that idea. But these are all really important dates. Of course, your name is on there, your invention title, and then you have drawings. And then as you go more and you turn the pages of the patent, you're going to get the full written description, the specification that sort of goes into more detail than what's in the abstract of what you invented. And finally, you're going to see the claims. And the claims are the actual things that relate to, that sort of define what your invention is. And here's a sample claim. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong button. There you go. So here, this patent on the right, it has to do with a chair. And if you look at the claims and you open the patent, you go a couple pages in, you'll see claim 1, a chair comprising, and you have a seat and a back support attached to the seat, support arms attached to the seat and back support, and a base comprising a plurality of legs attached to the seat. Now, this sounds like sort of technical language. So this is there's a way that things have to be written. This is not to say, like, there are people that come in, they don't have attorneys and things like that, that are able to go through this process themselves. But there are a lot of patent attorneys and places you can go to get help with this process of writing up the claims and writing it in the way that you're supposed to. We also have resources that are out there that help you with that. Brian, I know you have some information or things that you might contribute that you've that's been helpful for you as you've been getting your patents together.
Thank you, Vaishali. I have a chance to also take a look at all the questions that are coming in. So please keep your questions in there. We'll try to answer as many as we can, but I think one of them to clear up. So if I'm looking at this and I wanted to understand the way that this functions and twists and there's a purpose to it, maybe the chair spins, or maybe when you lean back, these are all utility. These are the purpose and the functionality of what the chair is. But the way that it looks is design. You were saying earlier, it's a design patent, so it's ornamental. It's really for the look of it. So people can have utility, the functionality, or they can have the design. So that's the thing, is when I come up with an idea, is it something that kind of looks and that's what I want to protect? Or does it have some kind of purpose, twists, turns, gears, some kind of understanding of what it is? So on a utility patent, you have 20 years, and the design patent, you have 15 years. So I have to also balance that out when I'm trying to license for royalties. A utility patent, most of the time, because you were showing claims. So that's like if you owned real estate, you have like metes and bounds of your real estate, your property, your territory for that time. And that's what you protect. Ornamental is just the design. So I have to balance out my strategies of what I want to do. But, sometimes when you have a design patent, if somebody ends up making enough of a change, they can also have it. So the question is, you think beyond what it is when you're filing to know what your strategy might be. And that's, again, trying to figure it out. But hey, at least we have some sort of intellectual property protection to be able to say that we could call it our own.
Thanks, Brian. So now, a little bit about the journey. You need an idea. You need your inventive, aha moment. Brian was like, wait a minute, why is the top of my paper towel holder getting dirty? I need to, oh, look, I've got this great idea. I have this aha moment to put a top on it. That's your idea. And so you need to, and is that an idea worth protecting? I think I want people to realize, like, sometimes they feel like they have to be, come up with the next breakthrough drug or something. No, there's so much great invention, big and small. And sometimes you don't even know how valuable an invention is. I mean, I love Brian's example, right? I mean, even the egg one, because so much, I have the whole carton is taking up all my space in my refrigerator. I mean, I wish, that egg, I think it's fantastic, right? So it is. So is your idea worth protecting? And we really want people to think of it very, believe in yourself and think that you do have great ideas. Even if you think it's small, it might be the next best thing that people really want.
Holly, it's almost like everybody comes up with ideas where people are in all different types of professions. They wake up and they're brushing their teeth, and they're going into the kitchen, and they're going to work, and they're taking public transit. Everybody's doing something all day long, right? Even if you're sitting in front of a computer. So it's almost like things are happening. And the people that are innovative, inventors, entrepreneurs, you're coming up with something for many different reasons, but you're either coming up with something to improve what already exists. For me, I come up with things with, I watch and I do things that annoy me, and I want to find a solution for it. So everybody has different reasons to come up with it. But one major point I could say is, if you don't capture it right there and you get distracted, poof, it's gone. So capture that idea. You're coming up with it. Now you need to go through some of the steps like Vaishali's going through with us to figure out, is your idea something that you could call your own? Or if it's somebody else's, that's okay too. You came up with a great idea, move on to your next one.
And so as we're thinking about, we have some, laws that tell us, when can you get a patent? And so first thing you have to know, and I'm going to go into the utility, is it eligible? Is it one of the categories that are allowed to get patent protection? And so these are things like a process, a machine, manufacturer, a way to manufacture things, or a composition of matter. These are eligible subject matter areas for patents. Certain things like natural phenomenon, or if you're thinking about or abstract ideas, E equals MC squared, can't get a patent for that right now. Or if you're thinking about DNA, it's naturally occurring. DNA is in all of us. That in and of itself, you can't get a patent for it. But so it has to fit into one of the eligible areas. Then you also have to make sure, is your idea novel and non-obvious? Novel. What does that mean? It means, is your invention new? And was it described somewhere else before? We call that prior art. Was it described in the prior art? And then it has to be non-obvious. So it's the differences with what's already out there, and your invention would have been obvious to someone in that field, right? So there's that analysis that's done there. And you might be asking, what is prior art? So prior art includes patents, printed publications. So has your invention been described in another patent already? Or is it in some publication out there? Is there an actual product, right? If you can show a product that already incorporated your invention that's been, out there in public, that's also prior art. So our examiners look at the available prior art that's available to them, and they determine, hey, is this new? Was it in the prior art before? And then after that, you have to, you've got your aha moment, and then you want to present your idea, and you want to sort of start putting it together. And, as you think about when you presenting your idea, I mean, Brian also said, like, write it down, because sometimes those aha moments just like fade away. But, diagrams are helpful. Don't be afraid to champion your idea. But a word of caution, we want to make sure that you maintain confidentiality prior to filing your patent application. So say, for example, like, I've got this great idea. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Know that if you disclose it, you have 1 year to file your patent. Because one of the things we say is, we're giving you this monopoly if your patent issues, but you can't have it out there for so long, and then all of a sudden say 2 years, 3 years later, I want to patent it now. It's already in the public. So we give you some time to sort of, disclose it, but once you disclose it in the public, you have 1 year. Or if you put it in some sort of, you do a research paper and you present it in some sort of publication, you have 1 year from the date that it's made public to go out there. Now you are allowed some testing and things like that, but if you show it at a trade show, you have to, you get a year. So just remember try to maintain confidentiality. You can sign NDAs when you're sharing it with other people and things like that, but know that it gets the clock ticking. And we would suggest that maybe think about, speaking with a patent practitioner, patent attorney about, how do you protect it so that you don't run afoul of some of these rules? Is there anything, Brian, you want to chime in here?
Thinking, actually, for me, a lot of times people, I know it's important to do first to file, and you want to file it right away, but you want to make sure, especially if you're going to use the provisional patent application advantage, that's where you can file and your patent pending, and you have that 1 year before you file the non-provisional to kind of explore. What I find is a lot of people just rush to do a provisional patent application, and then they're starting to work on a prototype and trying to get things out, and then they miss out on that time of building it. So look, everybody has different paths and different journeys that they want to take, and you want to be able to protect your idea as fast as possible. So another way, like what you're mentioning here, is having somebody sign a non-disclosure agreement. And that's going to basically say that I'm not going to talk about your idea to anybody without your permission. And if you speak to an attorney, a patent attorney or a patent agent, then they have an obligation. They're automatically kind of signed an NDA. But it's good to have that. And if you're going to go through other steps, to be able to just keep that on record. Both of you have copies of it, and it's just something that you have peace of mind, the best that you can. And that's the thing, Vaishali. Like for us as inventors, we come up with ideas, and we have to figure out who we can trust, right? If we don't talk about our idea to people, then we're going to be one of those stories years later. I woulda, coulda, shoulda. I hear them all day long. So we have to do the best that we can with the tools and resources that we have. And a non-disclosure agreement is a good way to start. A provisional patent application is a good way to start getting into the steps of filing for a non-provisional patent application, otherwise known as utility or design patent. These are the things that we need to do, and this is what we do to be able to protect ourselves.
Thank you. So as you start getting you've got your idea formulated, now we're going to start drafting the application. So I see my time is, I'm getting short on time, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker. But what do I need to disclose? So again, we give you a right to exclude others. So we want to make sure that you fully disclose your invention so the public can benefit from it and expand on it. And it needs to demonstrate that you were in possession of the claimed invention. So, and that you could teach one of ordinary skill to make and use the invention without undue experimentation, and describe the best mode contemplated for carrying out the invention by the inventor. So you might have this great idea. You have to make sure that you can describe it properly so others know what to do with it. And then you also want to make sure that your claims are clear enough. And so again, it's like, putting your fence up around your invention, and so that they know, the public is informed of the boundaries of your invention, and and is it clear enough that you've met all the requirements for patentability. And then the next part is filing the patent application with the USPTO. And our process is a back and forth process. You file your application, and then when you think about it, they're gonna look at it, see if you've met the basic requirements to get the patent, and you might get some back and forth. You might see a rejection. Do not get, oh my God, that means they're saying no. We're just saying, look, it has to be done a certain way. You have to make sure that you have met the requirements. And then also, if we find some prior art, you might have a way to say, well, no, this is not what I'm really claiming. The prior art says this, what I'm doing is this. And so you can have this back and forth with the examiner, and you will be assigned an examiner who's going to review. And then after that, if you get your patent, which is great, it will issue. If not, you have options afterwards to appeal. You can, go further to try to really go to get that patent, or you can might say, I abandoned it and I'm going to try something else. Our goal is for you to get your patent. We're not sitting here. We want to make sure we promote innovation, and we will give patents to the right people who deserve it. And we're going to work with you to get it into the form that it needs to be. And what is your role? Your role is to file the complete application, disclose the information that's material to patentability, and respond to our office actions. Make sure that you explain your positions, and make good faith changes if you need to change it. But again, it's this back and forth. And no, it is. Don't think of it as adversarial. Think of it as, when we really think about the USPTO, it's a collaborative process. And stay involved. Be a part. And you're the best person to know what your invention is. So, be an advocate for it. Finally, I'm going to quickly go through some of the assistance and resources, but a lot of this information is on our website. Our headquarters is here in Alexandria, Virginia, and that's where I'm sitting right now. We have regional offices in Michigan, in California, in the Midwest, and in Texas. We're going to have another one in Atlanta. These are places that you can come to if you have questions and things like that. But we also have at many different libraries. So Brian and I did a presentation in New York recently where there was a PTRC, and they also have a lot of resources and information about the patent filing process. And then at our agency, we have the Pro Se Assistance Center. If you don't have an attorney or don't have a patent attorney that's helping you, we have resources for people who are filing on their own. Now, we can't give you legal advice, but we can help you and direct you to the places you can go so that you can get through this process. We also have, and it's there's a customer service aspect. We want to give information for you all. Again, we're here to help. We have the ombuds. If things are, not moving the best way that they can, things are stalled, reach out to the ombuds and they will provide you help that we can try to get your application back on track. And then we have the Inventors Assistance Center. It's public information about the patent system and what are the services. And these are previous examiners and who can help guide you through this process.
I have to say that just very quickly, the support and the resources that are available from the USPTO, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, it's amazing. If you go to their website, uspto.gov, maybe later, you're watching us now, but there you can navigate through and find whatever you need. And look, anything is possible to do on your own. Some of this patent filings and the way that things are done might be a little bit complicated for us, especially the first time when we're looking at it. But, that's why you have to make a decision if you're going to do it yourself or hire a patent attorney or agent to help you. But I've had plenty of activity with the Inventor Assistance Center. They answer the phone. They help you and guide you through all different steps that you need, not to give you advice. Vaishali mentioned the Patent and Trademark Resource Center, PTRC. They're around the country, libraries all over that have search access, and just all the programs that go on at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that you can sign up for. So definitely take advantage of it. If you're in this space of inventing, being a business owner, there's at some point you're going to have intellectual property that you're going to want to protect, and this is the place to go.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And so, we have the Application Assistant Unit, the Patent Electronics Business Center, and sort of like the systems that you have to file these. We help you with that stuff. And so, how do you submit it? How do you view your information and things like that? What are the different, if you're having technical problems, we're there to help. And then we both talked about the PTRC. And so go to our website. There, like we said, USPTO.gov, you will find all these different resources. And then I'm going to hand it over now to Dave Gooder, the Commissioner for Trademarks, so he can go through the trademark process.
Sounds good. Thanks, Vaishali. Hi, Brian. How are you?
Good. Hi, David. All right. So here we are with talking about trademarks, and it's a different conversation than patents. And there are a lot of different things that can be covered with trademarks. So I know that it's planted in that presentation. So let's take a look.
Sounds good. All right. So there's lots of things about trademarks. We're going to talk a little bit about how they differ from patents, because they are fundamentally very different. And we share the same address. We're housemates with the patent folks, but trademarks and copyrights, or trademarks and patents, are both part of intellectual property, but like I say, very different. So like I said, there's lots of things we could talk about, but I want to focus on 5 things and then a little bit of a bonus thing that if you all come away with knowing about these 5 things, you'll be a much smarter trademark owner and a much more capable of protecting your brand, etc. So why don't we'll dive on into the 5 things. So thing number 1 is, people say, well, what's a trademark? Because you constantly get confused with a patent and a copyright, and people say, well, can I get a patent on that trademark, or can I get a copyright on that patent? Or we get them all jumbled up. Completely understandable. A trademark is a symbol of the goodwill of a business or a product. It's pretty simple. And what that means is it identifies the source that puts it out. Whatever that product or service it is, that product comes from that place. And the trademark doesn't have to identify that place specifically, but you just know who's putting it out. I mean, you look at like your invention about the egg storage thing. I think that's awesome. Whatever your trademark will be on that, people maybe don't know that it comes from Brian Freed, but they know that thing. So that's really what trademarks function as. People often ask me, well, I got the R in a circle and I got the TM. What's the difference? What do I do? The R in a circle means the trademark is registered, and it's technically illegal to use the R in a circle if it's not registered, but nobody's going to jail over that. TM simply means that you're claiming rights in a trademark, and it could be SM if it was a service mark. And it means you're claiming rights. It doesn't mean you have them. It means you're claiming them. So if you're looking at things out in the marketplace from time to time, you see the R in a circle, it means somebody got it registered. If it just says TM, it's a little unclear what it is. So it's worth checking further. What can be a trademark? That's the cool thing about trademarks. Lots of things can function as trademarks. So for example, take a product everybody knows very well. The first thing that can be a trademark is just the words. No stylization, no logos, nothing. Just plain text, the words Coca-Cola. That is a trademark, one of the most famous ones in the world. But you could also have Coca-Cola in what we call a stylized form. Well, that's a different trademark technically, entitled to its own registration. Well, you can have it with a logo. So you get the wave and the red, and color can be protectable also by itself sometimes, and even as part of the logo. Keeps going, you can have slogans registered as trademarks. And interestingly, you can have the shape of the container that the product comes in, if it's distinctive enough, registered as a trademark. In fact, the Coca-Cola bottle shape is registered, as are a number of bottle shapes. And it's interesting because almost every product you look at, if you look at it closely enough, you'll see unique things about it. Think about a guitar. Did you know that the very end of the neck of the guitar, the tuning peg head, the shape of that are registered as trademarks? Because that's distinguishing that guitar from other guitar makers. It's great. So
David,
the next question. Yeah.
I have a question. So you mentioned with the TM and the R, and I'm reading through some of the questions that are coming in also.
Yeah.
So just to understand, so if I come up with a good name, let's say for my invention, you like Extra Space, the collapsible egg tray. So I might not necessarily file it yet because maybe I'm working on it, but I can put a TM on it. When I'm using it in commerce, I could still keep in TM, or I can register it. And that I have, in order to do that, I have to sell it in commerce or have it being used in commerce. Is that right?
We're going to get to that.
Excellent. Okay, so that's one question.
Yep.
And then one other question for what can be trademarked. Somebody was asking about, can a family name or can a name be trademarked?
That is a great question. We'll get to that too.
Excellent.
We're going to cover all those. Are really good questions. So, all right, let's talk about how trademark rights get created, because it's different than patents. Here's one of the big differences between the two. And there are two. Trademarks are creatures of the country they live in. And there's essentially two systems around the world for when do trademark rights get created. And that's who's the first to use it or who's the first to register it. The US is a first to use country. Okay, so that means US trademark rights are acquired by using the mark out in business, not by registration. So even if you never register it, you have rights, they're valid. The only thing is they're limited. So if you only sell, was it eggs? What was it? Egg saver? Perfect. If you only sell that in New Jersey, then your rights to that trademark are going to be limited to that area you sell in. Whereas if you go to get it, to register the trademark, your rights become national. And it gives you more rights in terms of your enforcement against other users, et cetera. So it's a far better thing to get it registered. But that's the difference. The USPTO grants patents. We register trademarks. So when you talk about getting a trademark, we don't give you a trademark. You have your trademark. When you go out in business and use it, you have that trademark. Now, whether it's a good one, that's a different story we'll talk about. But that's you have it. And it's what you've created, subject to everybody else out there. But that's important to remember, because you register it to make it stronger, to sort of perfect your rights more. Okay, so your question though is, in order to get it registered, you have to use that trademark in what we call in commerce. That's a legal phrase in the law. And what it just means is, in business between states or between, let's say, the US and Guam, or between the US and a foreign country. And if you use your trademark in the legitimate course of business, that's the use that it takes to then get the trademark registered. So if you sold your egg thing only at flea markets in New Jersey, yeah, you probably, New Jersey's not a good example, because you got a lot of people coming from New York, you got a lot of people coming from Philadelphia, blah, 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 whatever. So just remember that it takes commerce. In interstate commerce is the easy one to remember it. And you can't just ship it to your brother-in-law in Montana. Okay, it has to be legit business with your trademark. And then, because if it's not, we're not gonna, the office isn't gonna check and see how legitimate your sales are. But if you ever get challenged, that challenger will. So that's why you don't want to take shortcuts with the commerce issue. Is that pretty clear? Any questions about anything? Yeah?
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions coming in. Is it only trademarked if you put the trademark on, the TM on it?
Nope. Nope, it is a trademark when you use it as a trademark, it's a trademark. And that's important distinction, because you can throw lots of things on your product. We'll talk about what can be a trademark in a bit. You can throw all sorts of stuff on there. That doesn't mean you're using it as a trademark. Good example is, you see a design on a t-shirt. Yeah, it's a cool design. Is that a trademark? Well, maybe not. Maybe what's in the neck label is more of a trademark. So you got to use it as a trademark. And like I said, they're territorial. So that means if you are going to sell your product, let's say in Canada or Mexico or Europe or wherever, you need to register it there as well. And there's ways we do that. But basically, like I say, they're territorial. So you can have a really great, strong, protectable trademark in the US, but you take it to, let's say, Germany, and you might not. So you don't assume that you can just travel to other foreign countries with it. You've got to kind of deal with registering and protecting it everywhere you go with it. Okay, number 3. I get this when I was in private practice. I got this question all the time, and people are like, well, but I incorporated. The Secretary of State says I have that trademark, or I filed my DBA, or fictitious business name, some places call it, or I applied to get, I got a domain name. Doesn't that mean I have a trademark? All right. The answer is, do they create trademark rights? No. Short answer, no, they don't. Now, not by themselves. If you have a domain name, but you also use it as a trademark, then you've created a trademark, but it's because you created a trademark, not because you filed for a domain name. So keep that in mind, that just because you filed the necessary business law filings, it doesn't create trademark rights. It might help you if you ever get into a challenge by somebody as to who did what first. That's useful, but it's really not gonna, it doesn't get there. So don't ever think that by doing those things that you have gotten any protection for a trademark at all. So I've seen a lot of very disappointed clients over the years when you had to tell them that news. Okay, number 4. People talk about owning their trademark, and people get very passionate about trademarks. I mean, it's amazing. I gotta say, you don't see people tattooing patents on their body. You see people tattooing trademarks on their body that they're so passionate about. But you can't just put them away and warehouse them. You can't stop using a mark for 20 years and then say, let's use that one again. So we talk about it. You got to use it to maintain it. So you have to use it to get it registered, right? And you have to use it, keep using it to maintain it. That's what I mean. You can't stick it in a warehouse and go back and get it later. And it has to be legitimate use. So like we tell people, it's use it or lose it. Now people ask, well, how long does that take? And by and large, there's sort of a presumption that if, in the US anyway, if you don't use it for 3 years, it's a presumption of abandonment, meaning the court may presume it, but you can prove otherwise. So it's not automatic, but if you haven't used it for 3 years, you got to be worried about it. So in some countries that's a little longer, it's 5 years, but for here it's 3. So keep that in mind about it. This is especially important if you're entrepreneurial about something and you see, like, God, when I was a kid, there was this company, it had a great trademark and I haven't seen it for, a couple decades. Let's go buy that trademark from those people and we'll start using it. Don't assume you can use it. You got to literally start the process of clearance, which we'll talk about. This thing number 5. We'll talk about that. So even though somebody had a registration for it, they used it. Don't assume that because it's been sitting in their warehouse that you can just buy it and start putting it on your product. We've seen that fad recently of companies kind of trying to resurrect old trademarks. Yeah.
It's interesting, David, because we started off about talking about patents. And, a lot of times when we were talking about doing that patent search and checking to see if you could call it your own, and sometimes realistically, it's somebody else's idea. If you make it, you might infringe. If it's in the public, then anybody can make it. So how do you maybe monetize an opportunity of something that you came up with? Well, you were talking about things that might have expired. So somebody had, let's say, the blanket with sleeves, right? And a great marketing company said, you know what, let's call this a cute name. Let's call it the Snuggie. But then immediately after that, there was the Slanket and all these other versions of it because people were able to make the same thing with a unique name and they would be able to sell it. So there's a lot of flexibility with trademarks that you can really work on certain classes of goods to be able to build up those assets.
Yeah, that's right. Your portfolio, trademarks become sort of, think about them as sort of a portfolio. And you might have the name Snuggie, but as you saw in the Coca-Cola example, that might actually be 5 or 6 trademarks that all are in this cluster. And you can think about it like a tree. The trunk of the tree is the main trademark. It's that word mark Coca-Cola. And all those branches and leaves are all, sort of ancillary trademarks. They're incredibly valuable, but they aren't the primary mark.
When I was pretty active in, and I still am, but back in the day, what I did, David, was I trademarked many of the emoticons and the acronyms that back in the day the kids were using, like TTYL, SUP with a question mark, LOL with a smiley face inside. And what I did was I built a brand out of it in certain classes of goods: T-shirts, backpacks, bags, stationaries, those type of things. And then I built that brand up and I licensed it in those certain class of goods, and be able to build, like you're saying, a portfolio of trademarks. And then there was the brand name too.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways, again, to monetize and build up assets through trademarks.
Yeah. And that core brand name itself, economists, accountants will tell you it can generate more value than all the other intellectual property in there, because patents expire, right? You heard it was 20 years from the date you filed it. Trademarks go as long as you're using them. And so that's what builds up over the years and decades. And you see some brands that have been around, the top 100 brands. I mean, a lot of them have been around since the 1800s. Brands that have been around for 50 years or whatever. They just accumulate value the better and stronger the trademark is. And that leads us to item number 5. And that's this: how can I own this trademark? Can I use it safely? What I mean by safely is without risk of being sued by somebody else. And just to understand that trademarks apply only to those goods or services that you use it for. So for instance, you are registering a mark for T-shirts. That doesn't cover tractors. And so trademarks are very specific to what you actually use them or register them for. So there's 2 issues that always come up when you're looking at a trademark and whether you can protect it, you can own it, whatever. And that's, can you protect it? And what's the risk related to availability of it? In other words, is there somebody else out there using something similar? And you got to look at both of those issues. You can't just look at one. And that's what we're going to talk about, because you can't own concepts and themes. You can't own what you can't protect. That's why you might use, generic word on your product, but you can't protect it. So everybody else is going to always be able to use that. So that's what I mean. You can't own what you can't protect. So you got to know what's protectable trademark, because when you're making decisions about the trademark, you got to think about, can I protect this in the future or not? Maybe I don't care. Maybe it's going to be done and gone in 30 days. Okay, fine. I don't have to worry about it too much. But if you're planning to have a trademark with some legs, you got to think about this stuff. And after that, you can look at availability. So let's talk about what can be a trademark that is protectable. And like everything else, it depends. It's a spectrum of protectability, we call it. And so we'll start on the left side of this, and that's things that are unprotectable as trademarks. Try all you want, you'll never be able to protect it or get it registered. Well, that's typically what we call generic terms, right? T-shirt, whiskey, wine, smartphone, routers. I mean, you can think of it's the name of the thing or the category of the things. And even if you combine it with an interesting design, you might get that registered, but the registration will only apply to the design, not the word itself. So you can't fool the system in that way. So moving up the spectrum, we get what we call descriptive marks. And these are marks that when you start out using them, they're not protectable, but over time, they build up meaning as being that brand, that company, etc. And descriptiveness applies to a lot of things. It can be a place, a geographic place. Deschutes is the name of a river out in Oregon. It's also the name of a beer. Well, now nobody would dispute that Deschutes for beer is that company, but it started out as a place. You had asked earlier about family names. Jack Daniel's is a good example. It's the name of a person. And when Jack first started selling whiskey, that wouldn't be very protectable because there were a lot of people named Jack and named Daniel or whatever. But over time, it becomes very protectable. It's what we call secondary meaning, meaning initially Jack and Daniels is a name, but over time it builds up this secondary strength. You might have it as to the quality or the contents or the nature of the product. Might be something very descriptive, but it's not the category. Pale ale's kind of a fuzzy example, probably. The next category we get to is suggestive marks. Now we're starting to get into gold in terms of really good trademarks. So suggestive marks they're kind of descriptive, but you have to know a little more before you really can say, oh yeah, I know what that is. So this is a good one, Groupon. Well, they made a word up to some, and it's coupons and groups and things like that. Well, you might look at that and go, well, it sounds like coupon, but I got to know something more. That's what makes it really strong. Netflix is a good example. 10 Barrel is a beer brand that was bought by Anheuser-Busch. 10 Barrel doesn't really describe anything, but you don't really know what it is. But barrels are used in beer, and how many of them are 10? Do you see what I mean? You've got that vagueness in there. That's a good thing from a trademark perspective. Witch's Brew is one I love for a drink, a beverage. All right, now we're moving up. Yeah.
Dave, I'm sorry. Can you just go one slide back and one slide forward? There seems to be some people who can only see the previous slide.
Yeah. So to that one or one more?
Oh, I think that's good.
Okay.
We should be okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll catch up. So I can move on to the next one. Perfect. Okay. The next category is what we call arbitrary trademarks. They are great. They're strong. You can protect them all day long. And these are things where it's a known word in the language, but as you use it as a trademark, it doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is this. If you're selling beer, Blue Moon doesn't mean a thing for beer. It's a phenomenon, with the moon, et cetera. It doesn't mean anything as applied to beer. The examples most people this is the best one probably worldwide. If you're selling fruit, Apple is generic, apples. But if you're selling computers, Apple is completely arbitrary use of that name. That's what makes it great, really strong. Amazon's in the same category. It's a river in South America. But as to online retailer, it's fantastic.
What about a color? There was a few people that asked about different colors that are protected. Okay,
so color is that's a good question. Color works exactly the same way. Let's think about it. If you're selling water and somebody wants to register the color blue, so that nobody else can use the color blue relative to water. Well, blue is pretty descriptive of color of water. So, and it probably even generic. It's sort of a core quality of it. You probably can't get it registered. Think about the example of what can be protected is the fiberglass company, Owens Corning, used to do all these advertisements with the Pink Panther. And they colored the fiberglass insulation pink. Think about, where does it go on the spectrum? Well, it's pink, but that's got nothing to do with fiberglass. So that's pink is arbitrary when you apply it to fiberglass. So it doesn't matter what the mark is. You can put it anywhere on the scale and you can realize, okay, I could protect that. I could do something with that.
One of your colleagues mentioned to me that UPS Brown is trademarked.
Yeah, because think about it. I mean, Brown doesn't mean anything as to delivery services. If you're selling cheese, orange is a common color of cheese. So you see how that works with the spectrum. You can put any trademark you want. In fact, this is a great thing to print out and hang nearby whenever you're thinking about trademarks, because you think of one, you go, where does it fall on this scale? All right, last category, made up terms. The best trademarks you can get. They've got the best longevity. They clear better. Classic case is Kodak. When they were creating the brand, they instructed their agency, I want a trademark where the sounds in it can be pronounced in every country on the planet at the time. And that's the sounds they came up with, and they made a word out of it. And these are the best trademarks you can get. Another one, Exxon, it doesn't, same kind of boat. Now, here's something interesting about marketing and marketing expense. The more unique your trademark is, the more you have to invest to get people to know what it is, who it is, what it is, who's putting it out, et cetera. Descriptive ones tell people right away. Well, okay, I go on my Amazon or whatever, and I'm looking for USB cable. Well, USB cable isn't a trademark. I'll find a whole bunch of sellers of USB cables. So maybe that's good enough for me. I'm just selling USB cables. It doesn't matter. But if you're selling something where that brand name matters, then investing in the brand, you get a greater reward over time because of its protectability. It's actually
like Q-tip, right? The cotton swab is really the name of that cotton on a stick, but everybody calls it Q-tip.
Yep, exactly. Yep. All right. So once you get that done, then you can do these searches. People talk about searching. I search the records. I search the PTO records, et cetera. First of all, it's risk. Some people call it clearance. Some people call it risk assessment, whatever. It's a risk assessment tool to say, all right, this trademark is great. It's protectable. I want to use it. Now, who's out there that's maybe got something too close to this that I would run into, and then I'd have to change plans or I'd get sued or whatever. And so there are consequences for not searching. You can be well down the road of your product development, launch, whatever. And the worst thing in the world is you're rolling out and you get sued because you didn't do the proper check on what else was out there. And we usually do this 2 different ways. We do a quick top level screening search at the records of the trademark office. That'll get you a lot of the way there. But remember, trademarks are formed and created by use, not registration. That means there are trademarks out in the country that were never registered, meaning they don't show up in a trademark office search. So that's why you have to search other databases, other places. Google's a good start. There are commercial companies that sell searching services. They're a good way to don't take a corner, don't cut a corner there. Like I say, the PTO records are just not enough. So when you get into the PTO, here's what happens with trademarks. And we'll talk about this, and it's a process, just like on the patent side. And there's things on your side as the trademark owner, and there's things on our side as the PTO. And when you start, you come up with ideas and development, and you did your risk assessment and clearance, and you like what you like and what you see. And what do? You look at our database. That's part of your process. Well, then you say, all right, we're going to protect this. Let's go. And you file a trademark application. And that goes through its process. And hopefully, if everything goes right and you did your homework and we do our job, it becomes a registered trademark. And here's just something interesting to know. The law is written that we will register your trademark unless there's a reason not to. So what the interaction we have with you is if we look at it and go, no, there's no reason we can't register this, it goes right to passes through. The only time we'll come back to you is if we have questions or something doesn't look right, et cetera. So then you need to maintain it, because trademark will only last so long. And so you have to keep maintaining it, even though you're using it to maintain that registration. And that's what we do. You come to us and say, hey, I've used this trademark for 5 years or 10 years, whatever stage you're in, and I want to renew that registration. And you just keep renewing them as long as you're using them. Now, you might get into a dispute, or you might see somebody try to register something later that you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's way too close to me. I'm not gonna let that happen. Well, that's when you come to us and protest that. And there's a court inside the office. We also do lots with policy and helping improve the laws and that kind of thing, but we'll skip that for the time being. Where do I go for resources? Okay, there's something called the IP identifier on the PTO website. And you can go in there if you're not sure what you have in terms of IP rights. Go in there. It's this guided thing. You put in answers to questions, and it'll come out at the end and say, well, okay, it looks like you have a trademark and a patent potentially. Or you have it helps you focus if you don't already have that. It's a good thing to do. There's a thing called the Trademark Registration Toolkit, which you can download. It's been downloaded tens of thousands of times. And it's the sort of A to Z about the process, about trademarks. It's an excellent reference for it. And then we've got lots of resources online. We also have something called Trademark Basics Bootcamp. We run it about 4 times a year, 3 times a year. It's 8 weeks, it's 8 sessions, and you will look. It's designed for people who don't use lawyers in the process. And that's important to understand. If you are domiciled, if you live in the US, you do not have to have a lawyer to try to register your trademark. We encourage people to do that. We think you typically get a better result, but literally 25% of the applications we get, people are doing it by themselves. And the resources are there to do that. So Trademark Basics Bootcamp is a great investment. It's like an hour a week. It's really good. Now, before we get to questions, I want to just tell you about one thing to watch out for. And unfortunately, we live in a world that's full of scams. And the trademark database is public. And that's partly because we want to be able to know who owns trademarks. You want to be able to say, hey, I like that. Who do I talk to about that? Or I have a dispute. And I look it up and go, oh, Brian Fried owns this. I'll get in touch with him. We'll try to work this out. So all the information you put in when you apply is public. Unfortunately, that means people who don't have your best intent and best, they're not looking out for you, can scam you. And we've started to see a lot more of these. And so we're putting out a lot of information on our website, social media. We're trying to make sure people, when we see a new scam, we put out information to warn you, and et cetera. Now, the one thing to think about, and this is something that is remember these things. If you get you'll get communications by text, by fax, by email, some trying to spoof us, etc. If there's any pressure to act immediately, it's probably a scam. If they demand money, it's a scam. If they send you an invoice for money, we don't send invoices, it's a scam. If they're trying to, it's completely unsolicited communications or advertisement and aimed at, and you're like, how did I get this? And you start looking at it, it's likely a scam. Look at it really closely. Scams usually they're not great spellers. And a lot of these scams originate outside the US. The biggest scammer in the world is based in Pakistan. Okay? You see a lot of them in China, you see a lot in Pakistan, you see a number of countries. You see some based here. They're based in Eastern Europe. So the language proficiency is not always is the same. So look for typos. If they ask for personal information, like anything, don't give it to them. And check your deadline dates. Sometimes they'll send you something, say, oh, your renewal is due in 2 months. And you go back to your registration and you go, no, it's not. It's due in 2 years. So there's that, again, that sort of urgency. So these are the things you got to make sure you look for. And the last one is the number one form of scamming right now is spoof phone calls. And they will take a number from the actual PTO and call people. And again, you apply all these rules when you're talking to somebody. The minute you push back and question it, they'll usually hang up. But if you have questions, you can contact us about scams. Please report them. If you're curious, one of the web pages we have is a list of all the known scams and who the people are behind them. So you got that. Where else can you get help? Obviously, go online to look at it. Follow us on social media. We put out stuff on Instagram and LinkedIn that'll keep you posted when we see them. Here's where you can report them. These will be in the slides. Important to report it to you'll see a link in there that's also at the FTC. Report it to them as well because they're independently tracking. And the thing about the FTC is they will take action when a scam gets big enough. But if they don't get notice of it, they don't know that it is. So we want to get them in the game. And if you're unsure, this is the best resource out there, the Trademark Assistance Center. No matter where you are in the process, if you've got a question, call TAC. They are brilliant about helping out. So, okay, I'm going to shut up.
Also, do your research, right? Do your research. Ask questions, get references, make sure that it's legit. But I mean, you really put out there all the different types of scams that are out there. Look, for us as inventors and entrepreneurs, sometimes we don't know who to trust. We're very busy. We're emotional about our either patents or trademarks. This is something important to us. And we get nervous. So you're giving us the support that is available from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. But most importantly, whether it's any of this stuff or anything in life, you have the right to do your own research, do your own background check and see what it is that who you're working with potentially.
Right. And the thing to understand is we're not an enforcement agency. So we don't have that ability to go, bring criminal actions against people and go after these scams That's got to be done by the Department of Justice or by the FTC or your local state consumer protection people, et cetera. We do all sorts of things about going after these people the best way we can as well. But seriously, the best way is just informing people.
One of the most important questions, I guess, for many people is the cost. How much does it cost for to register a trademark? And one other question which came up a couple times, they wanted if you could just touch on service marks.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so let's do that one first. Service marks are essentially the same as a trademark, except they apply to services as opposed to products. So if you're an accountant, that's a service. If you are a computer programmer or a coder and you have a business providing those services, treated exactly the same way. The protectability issues are the same. It's entirely the same. The only difference is, like I say, it covers services, and you would use SM on when you first start out, but once you register it, it becomes the R in a circle. Trademark filing costs vary a bit, and go to the website because the reason I say that is a couple of different ways to apply to register. The simplest way that you can go with it, should know this by heart, is somewhere around $300. I'm a little fuzzy about that. I'll find out really quickly and put it in the chat. But that's by doing it using pre-described goods that come from a drop-down menu, and everything is in that application. You're ready to go. You make it as efficient as possible. If you say, well, my goods don't, I need a special definition of my goods, so I'm going to write that the longhand, and I don't want to use your definitions, or I don't live in this country. I have to do things a little differently in terms of filing, or I have to have a lawyer or whatever. There's a different variation of that adds a bit of cost because it costs us more money to examine it. You can file based on your actual use, but the really great thing is you can file based on your intent to use. And what that means is you're in the planning phases and you're like, I got my trademark, I know what it's going to be. I don't want to let anybody else get in the trademark office ahead of me, especially if you're talking to people in the funding world, you're talking to advisors, manufacturers, people making prototypes, anything like that. File, because you can do it if you have a legit intent to use that mark in the future. You file it, it goes through the process just like a regular application does, except when it gets to the end, if you haven't used it yet, you get what's called a notice of allowance rather than a registration. And that just means we're going to allow it if you come back to us within 3 years and prove that you used it. And during that 3-year wait, you have to file for extensions every 6 months. So your filing fee at the front is one thing, but if you file based on this intention to use, you might end up with, a total cost of, say, closer to $1,000. If you use a lawyer, that adds cost on top of it. If your mark is really, really valuable, think about, whether you at least consult with the lawyer as you go through the process.
Doing intent to use, it's a little bit more expensive. I think it's $50 more than filing it if you already are using it in commerce. So the way that my experience is, I come up with something, either I wait until I commercialize it and I start selling it, and I've been using a TM, but now I want to show that I'm registering, and I can turn my TM into an R, or I can wait until I have my product and I'm starting to sell it, and I can file for the registration, for the fully issued registration. I prove to you that I'm using it in commerce.
Hey, Brian, sorry to interrupt. I just want to get Commissioner Vaishali on here while we have time to answer at least one question on patents, if she's still here.
Yep,
Perfect.
she is. Great.
Hello, Commissioner. Thank you for jumping on. We've been answering questions on trademarks for the last few minutes. We do have one question here. It says, mobile apps, do they need patents, and how does that work? Does it work the same as any other patent, even if you're perhaps using an Apple system or Android system to build that app?
I'm trying to understand the question. Just if there's some invention in like you've created a new mobile app and
Yes.
oh yeah, I mean it's just like it's another utility that you would file the same way, and regardless if it's on your iPhone, if it's on a Samsung phone or some other phone, Android, it doesn't matter. Like it's not about the invention itself, is the app itself and the utility related to that.
Okay.
One interesting point that I've made reference to is everybody knows Priceline, right? Priceline has a patent. If you want to take a look at the bottom of the Priceline website, you'll see the patent number. You could see how they've patented their technology.
I mean, yeah, and all the recommendations that you see on different websites, there's patents related to that. I mean, there's patents touch so many different things.
Like we
All right.
have.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Looks like we have hundreds of questions for both commissioners here. What are we going to do? We'll share the questions, right, Cody, and their offices, and we'll be able to answer as many as we can.
Yeah, of course. We are running out of time. I do want to share a quick link because I realized that we did not cover copyright in this program. So I'm going to share everybody a quick link. This is to a live chat feature where we have mentors on standby that can answer your questions about copyright. However, if we didn't have time to address your questions on patents, trademarks, and overall invention questions, for Brian, we do have plenty of options, and I want to get through them as we have time. So, of course, feel free to reach out using the contact information provided on the slides and the information that was provided as far as where you can get help from David and from Vaishali. And you'll be able to download those slides right now by going to the resource tab. And David, do you want to say something?
No, just standing by.
Oh, okay, perfect. I'm sorry. And then we also feel free to reach out to Brian using the contact information that he provided up here. I'm going to push that to the audience. There we go. And then we also encourage you to reach out to a SCORE mentor. I know we have mentors that are expert in these fields. And if you can't get an answer from them, feel free to go to the USPTO's boot camp courses. Do we know when those those next ones are being held, David?
Yeah, the current series started, I think, last week. So it's only if you go on the website, you'll see it. And they, like I say, they run. You could still jump in, and if you wanted to. But I think I can. While we're chatting here, I can look it up. But I think it started last week.
Okay. And are those on demand by chance?
No, they are actually live.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, fantastic. And as he looks them up, I'd like to give a very special thanks to Brian and Vaishali and David for presenting today's webinar. Thank you guys so much for your time and for sharing this valuable information with the SCORE audience today.
You're
Thank
very
you
welcome.
so much.
Yeah,
By the way,
thanks
I
for
noticed
having us.
there was a quick question about the cost, the application filing cost for a patent. The basic utility cost is, if you are just a regular entity, $320. If you're a small entity and there's certain requirements for that, it's $128. And if you're a micro entity, like a individual inventor, it's $64. So just know that, we are trying to make these, in a way that everyone can have access to it.
And one question that Brian, go ahead.
I was going to say, many of the questions that are on here and with pricing and boot camps and everything else, the USPTO.gov. There's an inventor business area there. There's copyrights, there's trademarks, there's you can find everything there. If you also want to learn more about the copyright, you go to copyright.gov and you can find plenty of information there. But USPTO.gov, you can find pretty much all these questions you're asking on there.
And as we wait for David to get that information, we do have one broad question I think we can answer. I know we're over by about 5 seconds here, but overall, when it comes to trademarks, when it comes to patents, at what point in your invention process, in your creating your business process, you think is the best time to do this so that you have this protection as soon as possible?
You want to go first, Vaishali?
Yeah, I'll answer very quickly. Look, as soon as you've got your idea together and you can sort of put it down and get it, whether it's a provisional or filing your application, it's better to do it as soon as possible. But at the same time, don't feel like, oh, wait, I didn't do it, a few months ago, it's too late or things like that. While we do have some time restrictions, it's never, if you still are within those time restrictions, it's never too late.
Yeah, on the trademark side, same thing, as soon as possible. We don't have a time restriction. You could use a trademark without registration for 50 years and then apply to register it. But before you talk to any sort of public business people, any sort of public exposition of your project, make sure you filed, because you can file based on that intent to use. And if you don't, the likelihood is somebody's going to do it. Same if you're going to go and market in another country. Before you talk to a distributor in that country, make sure you filed. The number of companies that have gotten, taken advantage of by companies in other countries who make a living out of hijacking trademarks. So just make sure you're thinking way out ahead. There's another thing I want to tell you about is this. Everybody's going to want a domain name. Make sure you apply for that if not the day before you apply for the trademark registration. When you apply for the domain name. And the reason is there are scammers who watch the trademark filing records, and the minute they see it, they actually register domain names. So don't sort of say, well, I'll file the trademark application, then I'll get around to the domain name in 6 months because we're not going to market for a year. No, get them, keep them connected up.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out today's webinar. Everybody take good care, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Sounds good.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.